but Norse paganism really appealed to me for some reason. It always has. And so you start looking at that, and I started saying, well, you know what? I feel like I need to do something. Even as an atheist, I felt like I needed to do something that was greater than myself. Whether that was, in a lot of Norse paganism, they talk about, being strong. And, one of the things I like is Odin, the difference between Odin and Jesus. Jesus just saves your soul. Odin tells you to grow the fuck up. It's kind of like this. And this idea of this god, Odin, who is not going to hold your hand and just save you out of your shit, gives you the power to save yourself out of the shit, appealed to me. As an atheist, that's like, well, that appeals to me because I don't have to depend on some external force. And so I actually started reading about paganism and Odinism and, I can't remember how to say it, truism or something like that. It's some kind of pagan religion that you can actually go to a church, so to speak.
Welcome to Rettals Pub, where spirituality is explored without the baggage of religion, and truth is something we chase with drink in hand. We talk science, the supernatural, and the big questions about the world around us. Always open to new ideas and perspectives. Our goal? To find understanding in the unexplainable and have some interesting conversations along the way. No dogma, no boundaries, just a couple of seekers and some interesting guests digging into the uncharted territory of the unknown. Grab a drink, sit back, and join us.
Yes, I have a date that in mind when I think you'll love this, my conversion.
Road to Damascus.
Yeah, the road to Damascus happened. But even then, yes, that was a huge moment in my life. But I look back and I think I had been led. Yeah, I ain't even drank the second one yet. I'm all it. I think I had been guided in whatever way, prepared. I think the fields had been plowed many years before. I'm using all of them. So that ground was tender enough to be able to
that's good.
To have that moment.
Grow.
I had probably a year before my brother. My brother's very much, he's along the same lines as us. And one of the things, and I'm going to take a tangent here, or an offshoot, but one of the things that always bothered me as a Christian when I was going to a church, was people like my brother and my cousin. I've got a cousin that's well known, Pentecostal at one point. He's non-denominational now, but it's in my blood. But why? Like, I don't claim to see things or hear things or feel things. I do feel things a lot, but my brother sees shit all the time that talks to him and guides him. I will occasionally feel nudges, but he sees things, like he sees people. And my cousin, he sees things and sees people, and
like Stone King sees, like.
Yeah, like my brother has people come to him. Like, he's got guides that come to him that he knows he can describe them to you. Like, they look like this. And I don't have that. And so, when I was going to church, it always bothered me that, I'd go to church as much as everybody else. I'd pray as much as everybody else. I'd fast as much as everybody else. But I don't have this ability to read people. Yeah, and now that I'm looking back, I did, but not to the extent, and maybe I just didn't trust it. Maybe that's the whole point. But, it always bothered me that I wasn't able to do any of that. But, as I started this path, I'd meet with my brother Mason, and we would sit and talk about his experiences. And I'm an atheist at the time, self-proclaimed. I didn't believe it, but I didn't mind listening to it, trying to figure it out, trying to understand it, whether it's okay, well, is he smoking pot? What's causing this issue? And that he's not a drug head at all. But I was intrigued by this ideal, and then I started looking at paganism. And paganism is like saying heretic. It's paganism is not a specific religion, but Norse paganism really appealed to me for some reason. It always has. And so you start looking at that, and I started saying, well, you know what? I feel like I need to do something. Even as an atheist, I felt like I needed to do something that was greater than myself. Whether that was, a lot of Norse paganism, they talk about, being strong. And, one of the things I like is Odin, the difference between Odin and Jesus. Jesus just saves your soul. Odin tells you to grow the fuck up. It's kind of like this. And this idea of this god, Odin, who is not going to hold your hand and just save you out of your shit. Gives you the power to save yourself out of the shit. Appealed to me. As an atheist, that's like, well, that appeals to me because I don't have to depend on some external force. And so I actually started reading about paganism and Odinism and, I can't remember how to say it, truism or something like that. It's some kind of pagan religion that you can actually go to a church, so to speak. So, I think that this ideal, that was preparing me for this spiritual contact or change or conversion or whatever you want to say, because I had started, even though I didn't believe in a God, I was still trying to get myself into a certain realm of authority or betterness, whatever the case, how you want to say that. I wanted to be more healthy. I wanted to be, because I think a lot of our problems, I've always felt like a lot of our problems that we have are self-inflicted. A lot of times it's just because of the decisions we make and that sort of thing. And not that I can't use help or not that you can't use help, but sometimes we can get our own shit done without help. That's just the way I felt about it at the time. And I don't disagree with that now to an extent. That said, I'm a little bit more gracious with people. I tend to want to help people more now than then. But it was kind of, I think that those ideas and reading those books kind of started opening up some of this. Maybe Odin doesn't exist, but I want to believe in something more. And I think that was that passport. Would you say that timestamp in a passport? I love that. That's fucking awesome.
I don't even know. I can't remember what I said. So
that was the greatest. That's awesome. The way you put that. And I think that, looking back, yeah, I had this major conversion experience, this Damascus Road thing, June 7th, 2022, But I think that while that was what hit me in the face, I think that I had been being, whether it's internal, whether it's my soul doing it, had been chasing this ideal, preparing for this conversion thing, which begs the question, how much of what we have is free will and how much of it is set before us that we're to experience as a way of growth and maturity in that sort of thing. Anyway, that's another tangent.
no, I like that. I think that, as we kind of look back and say, well, does one person's experience, is it better or worse than another's? One person's God is better or worse than another's. I do kind of like that about Soul Boom, Rainn Wilson's book, is because one of the chapters of the book is, hey kids, let's make a religion, right? So let's all put all of these great thoughts together. And no, we don't want to brand it as First Church of, whatever town, right? Not necessarily that, but more along the lines of, let's use some really great principles and let's start creating this evolution of people being focused on other things than, number one, themselves. Consumerism is a big thing that he brings up in the book. And, when you start looking outside of yourself I believe there, it's like an awakening almost, right? So you start becoming a better person. You start, and sometimes it's age that gets you there. I wish I knew back then what I know now, right? Because I would have been a lot further along.
Yeah.
But I like the concept of I wasn't meant to be further along. I'm meant to be right here. And so it's taken me, this was my journey. And those that have had a different journey, that should be celebrated. I mean, if they're ahead of me, great, right? But
are they really ahead of you? Or are they just on a different path altogether?
Some people are ahead of me for sure, for damn sure.
Well,
And kudos to them for that. And I believe a lot of it's by chance, right? So there are some uncontrollables. Like you can't say that everything is, I disagree with every step is ordered by God. I disagree with that concept. I knew a woman, and I think you might know her too. We won't say names, but I'll tell you after the recording. I knew a woman that believed that the light turned red. She had to stop for a reason. And when it turned green, God had ordained that light to turn green. And everything she did was ordained by God. She ran out of gas. She believed it was because God wanted her to run out of gas. Not because she was stupid and didn't fill up her gas tank. And I disagree.
did that last week. I just ran out of gas. I almost did though.
Ooh. But you ain't blaming God, or you ain't saying, oh, God,
I just forgot to fill up.
And she wasn't blaming God for these things. She was celebrating that God, this is what God wanted. Now let me figure out what God needed me to do in this space. And while that is, living in a space of absolute out of control and God is in this ultimate control of every movement of your life, like I lifted my hand just now because God ordained it. I mean, all of those things are what this person believes. I don't subscribe to that. I believe that there is a cause and an effect. I believe that there is science, and I believe that, science causes certain things. If I were to pick this cup up and throw it across the room, it would hit the wall. Not because God ordained it, but because I picked it up and threw it. And I believe that, we have to live in some realism there. And there is a certain inner, and I know this is going to hit a lot of people wrong, but there is an inner God that we have, right? And that doesn't mean that all of us are gods. Maybe not. I don't know. But I believe that there is that spiritual being inside of us that causes us to not throw the glass even when we're angry, or, all of those things, my heart being convicted, or whatever the word should be other than convicted. All of those things are all products of us and our own individual spirituality. Why are you smiling?
I don't disagree. I mean, I do tend to think that there are things that we are ordained, I guess.
Okay.
The other thing is,
What do you mean ordained?
in other words,
Because I think that has so many meanings that I hear. I want to make sure I'm not confusing it, or maybe others on the listening are not confusing.
what's the steps of a righteous man are ordered? I guess is probably the best way to say it. Now,
Okay.
does that mean that if I go eat hamburgers at lunch, that really matters? Probably not. At the same time, what is it that we decide that we're going to do that was ordained, even though, or ordered, even though we think it was a decision? Was it really a decision, or was that a reaction to something that we needed to understand, or another person needed to understand? If I run out of gas, is that ordered? I don't know. Maybe not. But it allows. Well, I guess my thing is it's like me and my brother had this conversation, I think on the podcast actually, but there's many ways to get to Dallas from here. You go down 45, go 75, you go
Wait and hold.
you can go way off the way, but the path is to Dallas. So then the question is okay, so I decide to go down 75 and hit this way and that way and the other way and stay kind of off-road, go through the
Athens.
Okay, so was that a decision, or was that something that was preordained or predetermined for me to do? Okay, so that construction on the road, was that decision, or was that meant to be there so that I would have to take a detour and understand this? And so it's, I also tend to believe that, yeah, I think that many things are ordered, but I don't know that all of them are ordered. And so I guess my whole point with that is that I'm just walking this path and trying to engage every situation as though it is ordered, to understand, okay, what is this? What does this mean? Maybe it don't mean shit. Maybe us going to eat after this, which I'm actually looking forward to quite a bit.
Me too.
Maybe it's ordained or ordered. Maybe it's not. But I'm going to make the best of it. I'm going to try to figure out what can I learn from this? What am I meant to do here? Usually it's just being who I am. You know, I don't know, you know, it's kind of, I don't have any proof of any of it. I just tend to think that we stress about where we are, and I don't know that we need to. I think we're you know, I've said it in the past, you know, I think you're perfect. And that always freaks people out. Like, I'm not perfect. I fail every day. No, you're exactly where you need to be, when you need to be there, and how you need to be there. Right here, right now.
This moment in time, this was...
Earlier, I said the things that I needed to say at exactly the same time, and it pricked your heart. You know, but if you hadn't been here, you wouldn't have had your heart pricked.
Right.
Right? So was that ordered?
But I purposely came.
But did you?
Sure.
You chose to, but a number of things could have happened in the meantime.
Yeah, and I think that's clever. And I do believe that, you know, some people live in that space where I live in more of a chance and circumstance space. So I really believe that chance and circumstance bring way to things happening and occurring. But it's possible that someone else could have said that to me too. And maybe it would have taken longer if I wouldn't have come here today. Maybe it would have been Monday before someone would have said something to me that I'd have been like, man, I really need to apologize for being a dick, you know, in this situation, and need to do better. But today was the day, and I believe it's more of, I think I live in the space of chance and circumstance, and it's okay that you live in a different space, right?
Well, I'm not even saying that I live in that space per se, as much as it's just a question in my brain, in my mind. I tend to lean that way, just because I've seen so many things happen because I made a decision, and it was
the impact of the decision.
Yeah, the impact of the decision was, you know, my wife, when she and I have had this conversation offline, and the question, you know, she was like, well, you know, I did this, and this because I chose to, but did you? You know, well, we can manifest things in our lives, and she's done it. She had a vehicle that she put on a fucking wish board. What do you call those things?
Vision board.
Vision board. There we go. That she bought that fucking vehicle and didn't even realize it was the same vehicle because she had put the vision board up and went back and looked at and it was the exact same truck, exact same color, the whole 9 yards. And she manifested that. And she's like, well, I manifested that. I did that. I'm like, but what if you were supposed to manifest that? What if that was part of your journey, is to manifest that so that you could do this, this, and this?
Yeah.
And so, yes, I think we make decisions, but are our decisions really decisions, or were they already ordained or ordered, or however you want to say that, you know? And that's where I that's the philosophical side of me. That's the I don't know. I'm traveling my path. I make decisions, but I'm at the point where I don't question those decisions. I may do something stupid. I did. I'm probably in the same boat as you. A few weeks ago, I did some stupid shit. I apologized immediately, you know, but I learned something from that. So then, was that decision made because I was stupid, or was that decision made because I needed to learn something from the decision? And it's a question to me. And so I don't worry about things so much. Now, it's not like I'm going to go out and do some nefarious shit because I think it's ordered of God, you know, but,
yeah, I have challenges around that too.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean-
so you have the idiots that murder someone. You have the people that, I think about my dad. He got into a boating accident, right? Is that ordained? Are you saying that was ordered? And my life then took a turn because of that. You start really thinking about your theory, and I struggle with, like, man, I don't know that it was God's will, quote unquote, or ordered for my dad to be in a boating accident when I was a kid, right, and die. I don't know that that's, I don't know. I don't believe that kids should have cancer, right? And I struggle with so many pieces of that theory that I just can't wrap my head around. Oh, this was supposed to be, or a child that was born with Down syndrome, or a child that is, all of those. Like, you think of everything that has happened to humanity. Our roof got blown during the hurricane, right? I don't believe that God ordered that, right? Because, by the way, we just got it fixed like last week, 2 weeks ago.
When the hurricane comes.
So there was a storm in May, like May 28th was a storm. And then our sucky insurance company, which I won't give them any credit, because I don't even want to say their damn name, took until July 3rd to deny it. So May, and then July 3rd.
That's like 3 months.
And then, of course, July 3rd, well, guess what happened July 8th? A hurricane came, and our roof was then exposed and became even more damaged. And so we just got it fixed in February of 25, the next year. So like 8 months of roof problems and some leaking and some really crappy shit. But anyway, I don't believe that God ordained for me to have a leaky roof.
So I guess maybe the context of the way I look at that is I view our lives as a way for us to use, I guess, Buddhist terminology.
Okay.
To ascend.
Okay.
So
I'm boring you.
the dude just made a big yawn. It's a sleepover. You hear him snoring, I'm gonna throw shit at him.
Throw an ice cube at.
Yeah. So maybe he needs some coffee, bullet coffee.
Yeah? You want some?
Yeah. He won't drink it. He doesn't drink.
It's called Kentucky coffee.
Kentucky coffee and redneck shit. Which
Good.
all about. No, I tend to believe that the things that we go through, whether they're good or bad, are meant to allow us to experience the things that we need to experience in order to ascend to a higher level of consciousness.
Okay.
So when you look at it as, the other thing is that, and we use this terminology a lot, is that I don't necessarily believe, and this is where it kind of, where I tend to split with Christianity generally, is that I don't know that there's a God in the sense of Christianity.
Okay.
I tend to believe that you said a while ago you don't believe we're all gods. I tend to believe we're all pieces of God. We're all a splinter of God. It's kind of like God is the ocean and we are a wave in the ocean. So we're all this live, breathe, and have our very being within God. I mean, if you look at it and that's the reason why I can use some of those terminologies, because I think that sometimes people take the things that were said and make them fit what I think they should say. And I'm kind of doing that right now.
We have to.
Yeah. And so,
We have to, though.
yeah.
We have to wrap our brains around what this is.
Yes. And sometimes people say it better than I say it, and my upbringing is Christianity. And so I'm able to say things in a Christian terminology that makes sense to me now, even though I don't proclaim Christianity. I believe that Jesus was deity, but not in the same sense that Christians believe that Jesus was deity. So, yes, I believe that Jesus Christ was God in flesh, but I also believe that you are God in flesh. I believe that I am God in flesh. I believe the Duke is God in flesh. What is God? God is in my mind, and granted, I'm just on this journey, so I could be fucking wrong. And if I'm wrong, I'll say tomorrow I'm fucking wrong. I'm not. Nathaniel Ershon, where I know everything there is to know about everything there is to know. And I'll probably cut that out because I don't want to offend nobody, but I don't really give a shit at some point. That said, if the purpose of my soul to persist in or to exist in this body, this incarnation, then and the purpose of me existing in this incarnation is to experience life as this 1 in a trillion chance, then what is the purpose? Is there a purpose, or am I just here? Then we go back to, okay, so if we have purpose, then is purpose random? Is purpose, if there is no God in the sense of Christianity, and we all determine outside of our bodies, in this, as my brother would say, we die, we go to the break room in heaven, we all have this conversation about the experiences that we had, and I don't know that that's necessarily theologically correct, but I don't
know that there is a correct.
Yeah. And so when you start looking at that, okay, so if Buddha is correct and I'm existing in this body so that I can experience hunger and pain and this and that and the other, then in that way, there are times when okay, so maybe my experience is to experience the pain of that, of whatever that is. And it makes the negative, I'm not saying the murders and all that shit, but it makes the kids with cancer make more sense outside of just some random shit that happened. And all of a sudden, what the fuck is the purpose of it all? And that's where I was as an atheist. What the fuck is the purpose of it all? What is the point of this 3-year-old? I saw a kid on TikTok the other day. He's 3 years old, has cancer. Probably not, he's terminal, so he's not going to make it to 4 or 5. And so, well then, what the fuck is the purpose? If it's just random luck, man, that's a fucking shitty luck. And maybe I'm just trying to pursue this. There's got to be a reason. There's got to be something.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just trying to make myself feel better about the negative shit that happens in life. Or maybe that kid changed somebody's life for the better at some point. And that was the purpose. We don't know.
I'm sure that a parent of that 3-year-old could give 2 fucks at that they've changed somebody else.
Yeah. Well,
if I'm being honest.
Yeah. Well,
because I wouldn't.
Yeah.
I mean, selfishly, that's my baby, right? It's my child.
But in the end, it's either luck or it's not luck.